robots will be working together. What would that look like? That brings me to the third and last thing I'm talking about today, which is how do you prepare yourself for the future that's coming? Like I said, in the next few years, you're going to start to see the beginnings of a world in which AIs, robots, become part of your everyday existence. They're going to be in your homes, they're going to be driving your cars, they're going to be working alongside you. So what are the things as a human being that you can do to make sure that you're still relevant and effective? Well, there's three pieces of advice I'd like to give you. The first is, you need to change the way you solve problems. So let me tell you a story about Elon Musk. I'm sure many of you have heard who he is. Not this Elon Musk, who's kind of cool and kind of in control. I'm talking about this Elon Musk, who was super nerdy. He just sold his first company, PayPal, and he was bored. So Elon Musk decided one day that he thought for fun he would try to build a rocket and send it to Mars. Now the problem was that no one had any rockets that he could buy. NASA was not doing it anymore. And he heard a rumor that the Russians were selling intercontinental ballistic missiles to anyone who wanted to buy them. I don't know how that happened. I guess it was the fall of the Soviet Union. There were some people there who were trying to sell stuff. Anyway, Elon Musk goes to Russia. He heard he could buy these rockets for $7 million each. He thought he'd get 3 of them. He goes to Russia, he meets a bunch of Russians, they go out, and then the Russians start laughing at him. They say, listen, these rockets are $7 million. We've seen you got lots of money, we now want $20 million each. So Elon Musk was upset, and he went home and on the plane, and he thought, how hard would this be? I mean, surely a rocket is just, metal, rocket fuel, engineering. He started reading books about rockets, and he said, you know what, this can't be this hard. What if I could actually just do this myself? Now, I know it sounds ridiculous, but about 10 years later, well, I guess he showed everyone wrong. He not only figured out how to build a rocket, he built a rocket that could take off and land by itself. In fact, the latest version of his rocket is actually predicted to be able to carry 150 full-size elephants into orbit. Now, the minute he does that, you're going to see the beginning of an entirely new space industry. Now, why am I telling you this story? Because Elon Musk is successful, not because he's rich. He's successful because when someone tells him that he can't do something, when someone laughs at him and says it's impossible, when someone says that there's never been anyone who's done this before, he goes back to the beginning, he starts with first principles, and he finds a way to solve the problem. So this is a great talent that, even in an age of machines, that we need to adopt. The second piece of advice I would give you, if you want to stay relevant, even in this age of AI, is learn to focus on people, not just numbers. So you might have picked up already that I've got an unusual background. My mother is actually Chinese, Malaysia. Are there any Malaysians here? Okay. My mother is actually from Penang. Okay, you sound excited. My dad is English. So I grew up in London, and during the 80s, my father was actually the CEO of Harrods. Have any of you been to Harrods? Okay. It's one of the most famous department stores in the world. And if you were, it was 1985 and you were there at Harrods, and then if you'd been to the food court, and you were there in the 80s, you would have seen a little kid on a stool crying. That was me. Because every Saturday my dad would drag me to the department store, he'd find a chair and say, kid, sit, shut up, watch. I thought he was punishing me. Years later I realized he was showing me how he worked. Because every Saturday he would go to the store and he would watch the customers. He would watch what they were wearing. He would watch the products they were looking at. He would watch how they were moving around the merchandise. Because whatever the reports the management team presented, whatever the financial numbers, Saturday is when he connected with the customer. Now, I don't need to tell you this, because if you're in this room today, you are the best sales leaders at USC. which means you already know the power of community, the power of social selling, the power of understanding the people that you connect with. And that's an important lesson in this world we're moving into, in this world of data and machines. Because I can't think if my father was still alive, he'd be doing what you do. He'd be trying to understand the future by looking at the behavior of your customers today. The final piece of advice I will give you is this. Get better at embracing uncertainty. Do any of you here watch Ted Lasso? Any of you fans of Ted Lasso, the TV show? Okay, it's one of my favorite shows. So I'm going to show you this clip of the TV show, and I'm going to explain why I think it's such important advice for the future.
Guys have underestimated me my entire life. And for years, I never understood why. It used to really bother me. But then one day, I was driving my little boy to school, and I saw this quote by Walt Whitman painted on the wall there. It said, "Be curious, not judgmental." And I like that. So I get back in my car, I'm driving to work, and all of a sudden it hits me. All them fellas that used to belittle me, not a single one of them were curious. You know, they thought they had everything all figured out, so they judged everything. They judged everyone. And I realized that they're underestimating me. Who I was had nothing to do with it. Because if they were curious, they would ask questions. You know? Questions like, have you played a lot of darts, Ted? Which I would have answered, yes, sir. Every Sunday afternoon at a sports bar with my father, from age 10 until I was 16, he passed me by. Barbecue sauce.
I love that piece of advice. Be curious, not judgmental. Because it's so easy when you look at the world that we're in now. Maybe even as you've been listening to my talk today and I was showing you the robots and the AIs, maybe a little part of you was like, this is terrifying, right? Maybe you even were thinking, maybe I get to retire before any of this happens. You know what? Here's good and bad news. The bad news is, if you're here today, it's already too late. We're all on this roller coaster to hell together. The good news is that I think you're going to be okay. And more than okay, this is going to be the most interesting, challenging, fascinating work career that you've ever had. Because this is the moment, like Ted Lasso says, where we have to be open-minded, rather than be judgmental and trying to do things that made us successful in the past. We have to be curious. We have to be open-minded. We have to be ready to embrace an entirely new world of opportunities. And that's not going to be easy. That's why you need to be bold. So, like I said, in this new world that's coming, we're going to need a new set of skills, a new set of strategies. I wrote about a lot of these in my book, The Algorithmic Leader, How to Be Smart, when Machines Are Smarter Than You. It's actually been translated in Chinese, Japanese, Korean. You know what? I know you're never going to read that book, so just take a picture of this QR code instead. You take a picture of that code, it will immediately give me access to your home network. So, you know, I'll be talking to you from your phone speaker. No, I'm joking. This is just a link to my YouTube channel. What I figured is that you don't have time to read books, so just watch videos instead. So I've created videos. But what I want you to realize is that none of us really know what's going to happen in the future. We're all learning, but we're on this journey together. So what you can do to prepare is be optimistic, but also realize that you need a deep understanding of both human values, but also you need to master some of these new technical skills as well. So as a kind of a challenge to you, think about this. What new technologies, tools, apps can you personally commit to in the next 12 months? You know, after my talk, the next few days, do some research, write a list of the things that you want to try in the next 12 months, and then be a role model for the people around you. Here's a final mind grenade for you to think about. Just imagine it's 5 years from now. There's some bright young person who's trying to decide what they want to do with their career. They may be thinking about joining a tech company, an AI startup. If you were going to persuade that person to follow in your footsteps and do the job that you're doing today, what would be your most impressive argument to that young person? What would you need to change in your world today in order to make that true? So it's been a lot of fun talking to you. I'd love to connect with you. You can follow me on Instagram, LinkedIn, X. And if you want the slides here today, I've also put them for you online. So if you follow that URL, you can actually download the recommendations I gave you. But what I want you to remember is that thinking about the future is not thinking about technology. It's thinking about people. And more than that, it's being ready to accept that the world of 2035 is going to be much more different than what you expect. I mean, think about it, 2035, you realize this is going to be 28 years after the first iPhone. It'll be 23 years after the first consumer VR device, the Oculus Rift. It would be 13 years after ChatGPT, 11 years after the Apple Vision Pro. 2035 will be a world in which the real and the virtual will be forever intertwined. How do you prepare for a world like that? What does it take to be all in on the future? Well, you're going to have to think big. You're going to have to think new. But most importantly, you're going to have to think quick. Because if there's one thing I can tell you, as a futurist, with any certainty, it is actually simply this. The future is now. Thank you very much.